So let's look at question number 1 here. In question number 1, they say we have a spinner with that has sectors labeled 0 through 9, and we want to know if it's fair. In order to be fair, as it says in the question here, they have to be equally likely that the spinner would land on any one of those different sectors. So our spinner is going to look like this. We have sector 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That means we have a total of 10 different sectors that we want to know, is it equally likely? So as indicated in the question, this is a goodness of fit. It will be a chi-squared. So really the only issue we have to determine is how many degrees of freedom. Now, the degrees of freedom for a goodness of fit test is the number of categories we have minus 1. So we're going to look at how many times do we land in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that would be 10 different categories, which means we have 9 degrees of freedom. Correct answer for number 1, B. B is the correct answer for number 1. On to number 2. So for question number 2 here, we want to know, are the number of injuries occurring on 3 different shifts equally distributed across this, across the 3 different shifts? So if we look at what we have in our calculator here, we could put the observed number that we have for each shift. So here you see the observed number for the morning, the afternoon, and the evening shifts. And then in list 2, we can put the expected value. So to get the expected, what I did was I summed up the total numbers of the 3 numbers in list 1, and then divided by 3 because we want them to be equally distributed. So we have observed and expected. We go to chi-squared, goodness of fit test on the calculator. List 1 is where the observed values are. List 2 are the expected. We have 2 degrees of freedom because we have 3 categories. We get a p-value of 0.000000704. In other words, very, very unlikely we get results like this if the null hypothesis is true, that they were equally distributed. So that p-value is less than 0.05, certainly, also less than 0.01, and less than 0.0001. Correct answer for number 2 is A. For question number 3, we have the situation where the distribution of all blood types for all people in the United States is the distribution that is described right here. We did a sample. There's a theory that people who are in the arts may have a different distribution. In particular, they think maybe perhaps those who have type B blood are more likely to go into the arts. So the theory is that we have an over-representation of type B. So our null hypothesis will be the distribution of blood types is the same for the people who are in the arts who we sampled as it is for the general population. And this is what we got for the general population here. Now I think if you do the math here, these are our observed values. I think you come up with 150 people that we had in our sample. So if we take 150 times our expected proportions, that'll give us our expected numbers. So our expected proportions are in list 2, 150 times list 2. This is how then we would get our expected values. So for question number 3, we're going to do a chi-squared goodness of fit. So the null hypothesis will be the distribution for those who are in the arts is the same as the general population. So it is as described for all people in the arts is as described up above. The alternative will be the distribution of blood types for all people in the arts differs from what we see up here. So we have some evidence of that because if you go back and look at our observed values here, we observed 50 people with type A blood. We expected to get 63, so we're seeing fewer. For type B blood, we observed 23. We expected 15, so we're seeing more than we expected in type B. So we have some evidence that these are not the same, and we can do a similar type of thing for AB and type O blood. So questions 3 and 4, would be as described. So the question is, how well do the observed values fit these proportions that we expected? Therefore, we have a goodness of fit for question 5. Degrees of freedom is the number of categories minus 1. We have 4 categories, 4 different blood types, so we have 3 degrees of freedom. Assuming the conditions for inference are met, we can use our chi-squared formula. Observed minus expected squared over expected, so we're going to take 50 minus 63 squared over 63. 23 minus 15 squared over 15. We'll do the same with 10 minus 6 squared over 6, and 67 over 66 squared. 67 minus 66 squared over 66. When we add up those values, we get a chi-squared test statistic of 9.631. The area underneath our curve then, from 9.631 on out with 3 degrees of freedom, is about 2.2%. Because our p-value is 2.2 and our alpha is 0.05, we're going to reject the null hypothesis. Question number 7 asks, are you in danger of making a type 1 or a type 2 error? So recall that a type 1 error occurs when we reject the null, but the null is true. So in this case, because we rejected the null, that's the only kind of error that we could have possibly made. Recall also that the probability of that occurring is whatever alpha is. So we're willing to make a type 1 error, in this case 5% of the time because that was alpha. Type 2 error then would be failing to reject when the null alternative is true. So if the null if the alternative is true, then we should be rejecting the null. And so type 2 error would be down here in this corner. And then what we want is to prove our theory, which is often in the alternative. So the probability that that happens is the power. So rejecting an null when the alternative is true would be a good decision. That's okay. And likewise, this would be an okay decision as well. So question number 8 asks, using the components of the test statistic, do a follow-up analysis to see if this supports our theory with type B blood. Recall that our theory with type B blood was that we were seeing more people who are in the arts. Those are the only people that we sampled here. We're seeing more than we expected. So we do see some evidence for that. 23 is obviously more than the 15 that we expected. So the question is, how much did that contribute to our test statistic right here? This 9.631 is what we got when we added all the observed minus expected squared over expected. So if we go down here and we look at that particular cell, the contribution of the type B bloods was the cell that contained the type B blood people to the test statistic was 23 minus 17, observed minus expected, squared. So that'd be 64. Over 15. 8 squared over 15 gives us 4.26. 4.26 is the largest contributor of any one of the blood types to this 9.63 that we have right here. So this is the largest contributor, and it is consistent with the theory because we're seeing 23 being bigger than what we expected. So the observed is bigger than the expected in the direction leaning towards the theory which said that people with type B blood are more likely to go into the arts. So the last question here is question number 9, and they say that we're supposed to do a hypothesis test to see if there's an association between gender and level of satisfaction at this particular sandwich shot. So we have a matrix. We're sampling from one population because we did one random sample. The matrix tells me that it's either going to be independence or homogeneity, and the fact that we're sampling from one population indicates that it will be independence. So our null hypothesis will be that there's no relationship between gender and level of satisfaction with the food. We're going to assume nothing. And the alternative would be that there is some association. Now, sometimes we'll say gender is independent of satisfaction, and the alternative when we say gender is not independent. Another way to say the same thing. So as we think of Hantums, we have done the H part of Hantums here. We need to check a couple of conditions here. As usual, we need to check our random condition. And they did say we randomly selected 1,000 people. This allows us to generalize from the sample to the population. Our independence or 10% condition, our sample size of 1,000 is less than 10% of all community members, we would assume in this case. So sampling without replacement is okay. Finally, the large counts condition. The expected value for each cell in a chi-squared test needs to be greater than or equal to 5. And in this case, we find the expected value by taking row sum times column sum divided by total. So if I think about finding the smallest expected value, that will occur in this row that had the smallest total. So in this case, the not satisfied group. And in the column that had the smallest total. So if I do row sum, 200, times column sum, 464, for the smallest row and smallest column, and then divide by the total, I think you find the expected value for that cell to be 92.8, definitely greater than or equal to 5. We meet the large counts condition. So if we think about Hantums, we've done the H, the A, the N. The name of the test will be a chi-squared test for independence for reasons we talked about already. Our test, we need our test statistic. We're going to take each of the observed values, subtract the expected value, square it, and divide by the expected. So when we're doing a chi-squared test for independence or homogeneity, we're going to put our data in a matrix. So we would put our observed data in matrix A. In this case, we'd need to edit it so that it's a 2 by 2 matrix, 2 rows and 2 columns. And then it will compute the expected and put those in the appropriate spot. So here you can see in matrix A, we have the observed values for this problem. If we go to stat, over to tests, we are not doing a chi-squared goodness of fit, we're doing a chi-squared test of independence. Our observed values are in matrix A, we're going to put the expected in matrix B. And here we have our chi-squared test statistic. If you wonder where you can see those values for the expected, you can go back to matrix B, and it computed all of those expected values. And that's what I showed when I showed the observed minus expected squared over expected for each of those different cells. So here you can see what those sum up to, and we showed a couple of the terms so you can see how we got there. The p-value then would be 4.2%. So HANTOM, we're going to make a decision here. Since the p-value is less than alpha, we're going to reject the null. And then finally, with Hantums, we're going to state in terms of the alternative hypothesis what we learned. So we do have convincing evidence that there is an association between gender and satisfaction with food because of the fact that we rejected the null hypothesis, that there was no association. Hope that helps with question number 9.